Welcome to Hartford Public Access. It's Jerry Irwin and Peter Hindle. We are the Whaler guys, and we're in a fight to bring the NHL back to Hartford. Pete, what we got going tonight?
You know, we got great topics tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the NHL rumors we've heard from different various sources within the NHL, within Hartford. We're going to talk about the horrible news for Springfield. The Falcons are actually leaving town, leaving Springfield without an AHL franchise for the first time in like 80 years. And you and I were lucky enough to be a guest on a NPR show hosted by Colin McEnroe about public investment in sports. And, you know, we were lucky enough to get a chance to talk, so you can actually hear us in the show. So let's talk about that NHL news, which everyone probably wants to hear about. You know, I think back in December, we pretty much told everybody that, you know, why don't you take a break because nothing's going on. But, you know, you and I have a couple people downtown, and, you know, they don't want their names revealed, and we don't go shouting out whatever they say, but we have heard from a couple of different sources that there are, you know, a couple of visitors, some attorneys possibly, NHL related. Mm-hmm. Now, we haven't seen it with our own eyes, so that's why we're not telling you it's definite, but we're just telling you that there's some rumblings of things going on, and the three sources who don't know each other, their stories line up, you know, pretty much on the basic generalization of the facts that they gave us.
And what was interesting is when we were talking about this story, we talked about the NHL, we talked about attorneys, we talked about, and we heard that the investment group was involved in this as well.
Right.
Very important, the governor, the investment group, and the NHL. So we're back to this again. Yes, don't worry if my source does not come through. I will beat him to a bloody pulp in the streets of Hartford, wearing my Whalers jersey to make a point of it.
Right.
But he has been very good to us, and the other two sources who are new to the game have been pretty forthcoming with information.
Right, right. And you know, we talk about sources and we hear these rumors and possibilities, but we do our homework. You know, we contacted the CRDA. Jerry and I contacted Chris Lawrence at the XL Center. We said, probably can't comment on this, but did you hear of anybody coming in town, any big meetings about the XL Center's future? The CRDA responded to that New York Post article. They said that was same old news. That's their story. When we contacted Chris Lawrence, you know, he wasn't aware of any, you know, big Spectra visitors coming because, you know, the XL Center is heavily involved with Spectra, and they still have like 6 more years on their contract. So, you know, officially there's no comment from the people that we know, but the underground people that we talk to, the sources that, you know, are doing their business in downtown and notice things, they seem to see some things going on. And you know what? It really comes down to the fact that out of the blue, you know, the NHL still has some franchises that are hanging in the balance. Now, we can probably count the Coyotes out after the news that was released yesterday.
Yeah, you know, off camera we talked about it, and now that Springfield's going to move out to Tucson, it's probably a pretty good bet that Arizona's going to stay right where they are.
Yeah.
It would be counterproductive to move a team all the way out to the West Coast to move the parent club over to the East Coast.
Something pretty amazing would have to happen. You know, for that to happen, for the Coyotes to actually make another move out east.
But you brought up a very good point. You know, with Springfield moving out to Tucson, we now have an opening in Springfield. So if a NHL club was to relocate here in Hartford, they would have a spot to put their AHL farm club.
Right.
And that's important in the logistics of a plan, if in fact there's one going on. And again, you know, we have our sources, but we haven't confirmed any teams specifically that have been here. Right. So if they are laying the foundation, that's fantastic. Right. Again, don't jump and get all crazy. We're trying to keep you up to speed on what we know, just so if something down the road comes, you'll say, hey, these guys were talking about this years in advance.
Yeah, it's a process. It's a horrible word because a process to you sounds like, oh, so I have to wait. Yeah. Unfortunately, we're going to have to wait and wait a little bit longer. But, you know, the difference between waiting and the way we were waiting before is there was absolutely no talk going on. You know, we believe firmly that at the end of everything said and done, this XL Center will get done, and the building will be 90% NHL ready regardless if they're even looking for the NHL. So having the building is that one piece, and Michael Freeman said it on our show about a year ago, having a roadmap to the NHL, the arena will no longer be a barrier to that. So, but we're still waiting, bottom line.
What Malloy said was that the NHL will make its way through UConn.
Yeah.
And with UConn having good attendance numbers again, as rated right up towards the top, again, this is the positive step we've needed.
Right.
Unfortunately, the AHL has not been the conduit to show that the fans in Hartford and Connecticut are big hockey fans. It took UConn to come into the building to really push the fan base.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talked about it. Last year they were first in Hockey East and 10th in the nation. This year they were third in Hockey East and 12th in the nation. Now it's a small drop, but they also had 6 Tuesday night games, so they didn't have that the first year. So Tuesday night they were outdrawing the league on all these, on nights when you don't really draw that well normally.
And then they outdrew everyone in the
playoffs. In the playoffs.
So, they had a short stay in the playoffs, but the crowd still came out to support the club, and we were the highest attended games for the playoffs, which is
in the first round,
which is awesome.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And we've talked about it before. Quinnipiac, their cap in their arena is about 3,500.
Yep.
We were at $6,000.
Yeah.
Just under $6,000.
Yeah.
And that's double the size.
Yeah.
And we wish it would be more, but you put a good club on the ice, you'll get more people.
Yeah.
And again, it'd be interesting to see where they go with their season tickets. They jumped up 300 more than previously. Let's see what they can do next year, and I hope they're really selling season tickets for next year because it is a great brand of hockey.
Right, and I think that's what really made them do well in the playoffs, I bet you, because I think those season ticket holders hung around for those playoff games, and so they had their season ticket base come in, and we don't know this for sure because we haven't really checked with other teams, but I wouldn't be surprised if UConn has one of the highest season ticket bases.
Oh, sure.
And you know who's noticed that? Investment groups noticed that, and who told us that? I mean, this one governor's been dead on right with one thing, and that's go through UConn, and it has been a tremendous groundswell of support for UConn. There's 80,000 UConn grads within a half hour, 45 minutes, and I think in some manner it's helped the Wolfpack a little bit. They've kind of flattened out around 4,400 or so, but that's
which was an increase from last year.
No, a little bit lower, 28 people less. But we're talking about 1,000 people less. Can't really beat them up over that.
No,
the team didn't make the playoffs this year. They were a better team last year. They won the division last year.
Yeah, but you know what? 28 fans.
A game.
I'm happy. I'm happy with where they are. If they went down dramatically, I'd be more upset with it.
Yeah, right.
I think doing what they did and finishing. Unfortunately, they didn't make the playoffs because hockey's hockey. You're going to see a hockey game.
I wish they'd had. It would have been fun.
It would have been a lot of fun.
They would have played Toronto. You would have heard O Canada in the building and stuff. So. It would have made it kind of interesting.
Hey, NHL playoffs.
Yeah, right? There's no Canada.
3 minutes shorter because they don't play the Canadian national anthem because seriously. There's not one Canadian team in the NHL playoffs this year.
Yeah. Now
I found that interesting.
Back to the Springfield thing quickly, we did want to say that Bruce Landon, who was a former Whaler goalie, is a guy who's been with Springfield and he saved hockey, and I think in '94 when the Indians moved and they brought the Falcons in. He said he's going to try and get another team, but he's got like 3 weeks to do it.
Yeah.
And the problem is there's no teams for sale. In the AHL. So they might be dormant for a year, but suppose an NHL team does find its way to Hartford next season or the season after, that Springfield-Hartford 1-2 punch for hockey, they're in the same media market. It's the 30th largest media market in the country. That's a sweet deal if an NHL team likes that.
And we've talked to a lot of people at the Wolfpack games that go up to Springfield to see the game. So, going up 91 is a short ride from Hartford and in the surrounding area. So, you could have the NHL club here, the AHL club up there. It could be a 1-2 punch that could be very profitable for the area, the region. Yeah,
could see the Wolfpack attendance go up a little bit next year because of there are no games in Springfield. Will some AHL Springfield fans come down and see more Wolfpack games? Providence Bruin games, they're probably going to raise an attendance there. So, that's for sure. But, the other thing we had talked about was, I think it was on April 6th, Colin McEnroe had hosted a show at the Watkinson School in Hartford. It's called Freshly Squeezed with Colin McEnroe, and he brings up what he calls a juicy discussion, which is hence the name.
And it's all about current affairs.
Right.
And it's on WNPR, public radio.
Right.
It's a great show. He's a huge homer. He loved the Whalers.
Right.
And Peter and I were just going to go as observers, and Jeremiah Raffini was invited to be on the panel to discuss investing in your hometown teams.
Right.
Peter and I and Jeremiah sat at a table and had some dinner before the show, and Colin joined us.
Right.
And for a half an hour, Jeremiah, myself, and Peter educated him in the Whalers.
Right.
And it turned out that Jeremiah, Peter, and myself were invited to take some questions during the show. And, it's great to see someone like Colin McEnroe, who's a downtown dweller, who's passionate about the city being another, like we've said before, instead of just a drive-through, stay overnight, that it's a destination.
Right.
And whether it's AHL, NHL, UConn, we have to have the events in the XL Center, and that was part of the conversation as well as the Yard Goats.
Yeah, I mean, it was really neat. And Jeremiah Ruffini, who wrote Making a Relocation, talking about the Whalers, and he did a lot of research on, who are the players, who should we really be blaming, what really happened, what are some of the underlying things. It was a really good piece. It was like 6 or 7 parts long. He made it. Mm-hmm. And then they had Oz Grable, who is the head of Metro Hartford Alliance downtown. Mm-hmm. They had Josh Solomon, who is the owner of the Yard Goats. They had Victor Matheson, who is an economics professor out of Holy Cross University, and of course Colin McEnroe. So it was a very educated panel, and I think we went in with a little bit of trepidation that we were worried, like, are they going to blast like the XL Center remodel? Are they going to blast the Yard Goats?
And it turned in just the opposite.
It was pretty. You know what? We actually brought information, and I would never say this because it makes it sound like we were part. We did more than we could, but we actually brought some people into the fold and taught them some things about what's going on and how Hartford's doing and what are the attendances like, what's UConn doing, this and that. And people were very receptive to us. We got to hand out a few cards, and we totally appreciate that because we like reaching out and getting to meet new people, making contacts downtown, and there were a lot of important, influential people in that group.
There was the previous owner of the Bridgeport Bluefish.
Right.
He was there. Mr. Hickey, I think his name was.
Right.
And then a couple other people that came up to us after the show, and it was really nice to talk to them about, the good old days of Whaler hockey and, how hard it's going to be to get the NHL back. And we all know that it's not, that it, like Oz was saying, and I've said it to him many times, that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and we have to be ready to, be patient. I am not a patient person at all. So it takes a lot from me. But even Oz brought up some very, very good points about the XL Center and making it a regional spot for high school wrestling, for indoor sports, basketball, high school championships. If you can have the suburbs come into the city and use it for their high school sports, you're making it a need. And it's less of a burden to go out and ask for money. Yes, we hope the investment group is going to invest some money. Right. We heard that when Arizona was looking at their arena, that the investment group was going to put in about $100 million.
Right.
We don't know. Again, we still have not been able to figure out who the investment group here is in the Connecticut area. But if they're willing to put some money up, then it takes a lot of burden off the state to get this building up to what they want with the remodel of the $250 million. You talked off camera about that they're starting the process with the ice making machine. CRDA put it on their website that's the beginning steps. Now we need that amongst everything else. Because no ice, no hockey.
Right. And it goes to show that even though you're not seeing the full XL Center remodel, according to the CRDA notes and according to Jerry Cantlin, who mentioned when he talked to Michael Freemuth of the CRDA, that the ice machine is going to be replaced. Now, it definitely needed to be replaced. We knew that. We knew the ice was bad. You hear people complain about the ice. So it did need to be done. Did it need to be done immediately? That's the interesting part. Did it, being done quickly when we thought nothing was being done?
It seemed like when we talked to Michael Freemuth that it was
not going to happen.
Well,
not right now.
But it needed to happen. One of the first things to happen. He said it belonged in the Smithsonian. It's not a thing of beauty. And we are going to do a tour, and Michael Freemuth and Bob Saint are going to take us around the XL Center. We're going to get some pictures so we can show you how bad it actually is. It's very important that the taxpayers of Connecticut, as much as right now we're in a very, very difficult time with the state budget.
Unfortunately.
It's of course, we need something to happen with the XL Center, and we're in a pile of crap. The bottom line is, though, if you see the pictures, and we can point out exactly why this arena needs to be
retrofitted,
patched, or renovated.
It needs a little bit more than spit and glue. Let's say that.
This is the most important thing. That if it's going to be a destination and the nucleus of downtown, you have to see why this has to be done now. And whether that's bonding money or whatever, yes, we're going to pay for it. We all know we're going to pay for it because I'm a taxpayer. Peter's a taxpayer. We're all, until we get this thing done, we're going to be paying for it. But the long-term investment is how many sports, how many high schools, how many AHL games and UConn are going to play there. It's the investment for the future, and we need it.
Right. I mean, for instance, this day when we talked to Chris Lawrence at the XL Center, there were 50 hockey games at the XL Center this year, and you're talking about over 250,000 people. And that's for college hockey, college basketball, and AHL hockey. Now, you put the NHL in there, you know, in the late 80s, the Whalers drew over 600,000 to the XL Center. That was when the building was smaller. The new seat arrangement puts them at about 18 to 17,000 for hockey, which would be just incredible.
They were talking 19,000 at the last one.
Yeah, which would be unbelievable for this venue. But as we saw with SCI and their marketing plan, like you mentioned with the high school wrestling, you know, and other high school events, there's so much event space in the XL Center that SCI was like, you guys are all set. You got a bigger footprint than MSG, a bigger footprint than TD Bank North. So that was all exciting news to hear. And, you know, you kind of get the feeling that at least they're doing some things maybe a little bit under the radar.
Sure.
But the heavy lifting maybe would happen next summer.
Yeah. Again, depending if they're going to go bonding for any of that, if in fact they can get the money released from the bonding, if it's approved, you know, these are all things that we really don't know. And we know that they're going to start some of this work, and there's some leftover money from the previous job that they still had, and they were going to use whatever they had to get some of the minor stuff done.
Right.
Minor, I think the ice-making machine's a major one.
Yeah, yeah, and we did hear about someone who works for the city who mentioned that they were taking some measurements of the shipping and receiving area a couple months ago and talking about, you know, we can go up 5 feet this way or we can go over 5 feet, you know, talking about rearranging shipping and receiving. So there is a small-scale remodel of some aspect going on, and the building needs it. And this is the type of public funding that, you know, goes a long way. This is not like the ballpark where we put public funding into something that wasn't there. You know, we're talking about the XL Center. We're talking about keeping it running, and you can't keep it running without the public investment part because unless you find someone that's private investment, but that's even harder. So,
well, it's not like the 80s and 90s, and you know, as much as I admire the Baldwins for taking that step to try to bring the Whale name back and bring the fans back in, you know, money borrowed back then from your investors and money borrowed today is a whole different ball game. Right. It's kind of like limousines back in the 80s and 90s. Everyone would take limousines to go out for a night out. Yeah, it was a luxury. You don't see that today.
Right.
Us as taxpayers keep our wallets very tight to our behinds. And you know, the bottom line is I don't believe that people are willing to take the risk. Right. Yeah, it's a lot easier said than done when I say, oh yeah, spend money. Well, it's not my money. I can't say that. That's
Simply
not fair.
Said,
yeah, exactly. If I had $1 million and won the lottery, which would never happen.
Right.
Yeah, I put some money towards a hockey club. I'd be an investor.
Yeah, why not?
Hey, why not? You know what?
Throw your hat in the ring.
Yeah.
You know?
Hey, we could do it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now the last thing we want to talk about is currently the NHL playoffs are going on, and you know, these shows usually air you know, on Thursdays at 7 p.m. and 6:30 on HPA TV, but we get them up on YouTube probably a week later. So we're going to give you a little bit. We're going to try and predict what we think is going to happen. Now, right now we're about Game 4 of the series.
Right.
And what did you wanted to talk about that Philly Washington? There was a bad hit in the Philadelphia Washington game, which was last night, I believe, or no, 2 nights ago.
2 nights ago, and you know, I think when you have the chance and you can find it on YouTube or any of the other social media, you know, Barry Trotz said it great. You know, Washington won the game 5 or 6-1.
Right.
After that, it turned into a disgrace for hockey.
Yeah.
It was not what hockey represents. Barry Trotz had his post-game press conference, and he said what he saw tonight in the last 7 to 8 minutes of the game was disgraceful for the NHL and the NHL playoffs. As you see all over social media, it's that time of the year again. It's NHL hockey time for the playoffs, and it is probably the most exciting sport.
Most visual time.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You know, you can see these guys. They're pumped to get on the ice.
Yeah.
It's like releasing the hounds. You know, it's great. But you know what? The fans in Philadelphia, I had a really difficult time. They were terribly disrespectful. They were losing. Yeah, everyone hates their home team to lose, but they were disrespectful, throwing things on the ice. And you know, after that hit, that was a boarding call. And again, I forgot the players' names. We just saw the video on YouTube before we came in. The guy should have been suspended more than 1 game. It was a horrible hit. He had a chance to pull away and not hit this guy, and he didn't. He should have had 2 or 3 games. It was an intent to injure. You know what? Get out. There's no room for that in the game anymore. You know. And then last night, I watched the Blackhawks in St. Louis, and Andrew Shaw got called for a penalty, went off the ice and made a homophobic slur, and it was caught on video. The Chicago Blackhawks is a class organization. They got out in front of it. They told him, hey, listen, you got to go out in front of the press and you have to apologize to the gay and lesbian community. the GLBT community.
Yeah.
And you know what? He did, and it looked like he was sincere.
Yeah.
And he said his emotions got to him. He shouldn't have done it. But, you know, there's no room for that. You know, we live in a whole different world these days. Everyone should be created equal. You know, there's been so many, it's such a diverse sport these days. And you know what? Don't go backwards, especially, you know, you shouldn't do it anyways, but hockey has always had great players, great organizations that cared about the community and cared about their fans. And for Andrew Shaw to do that, wrong for you. Good that you got out there, but were you out there because your team said to do it, or you really did have trouble sleeping last night? So I have a really difficult time with someone doing that in this day and age. Did he make a mistake? Yeah, I think he did. Yeah. And he was remorseful. He was very apologetic. So
yeah. And unfortunately, his team is down 3-1. So you know, that's a tough series to predict because.
Who are you going for?
Well, if anyone can come back from a 3-1 deficit, it's Chicago, and if anyone can choke away a 3-1 lead, it's the St. Louis Blues. However, you know, I feel that St. Louis is so big. Yeah, well, they're big players. They have now Shattenkirk is a defenseman for St. Louis. He's from Connecticut.
Shattenkirk.
Yeah.
He hit Crawford last night, the goalie Corey Crawford, and Crawford went after him in the corner. Yeah. And they got into a scrap. It was great. Yeah. I'm picking St. Louis. I'm going to say 6 games. Just because it seems like, and again, I love Joel Quenneville, love Kevin Dineen, it seems like St. Louis has more passion. They seem to be.
Yeah, they hit harder too. They're bigger boys there.
Yep.
Now, the last night was the Rangers in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's up 2-1. What do you think about that series going forward? Do you think that's a 6-7 game series? Who do you see on top?
Well, I'm not a Ranger fan, so I'm going for Pittsburgh.
I didn't ask you to ask. Who do you think is going to win?
I do not like Sidney Crosby.
Yeah.
But I believe I would give the edge. And the edge is because of their 2 backup goalies that are in, that have come on strong.
They have.
And
AHL.
you know, poor Lindquist, who I'm not a fan of, came back after getting whacked in the eye by his teammate's stick.
Stahl.
So he's very lucky to come back.
Yeah.
I'm going to give the edge to Pittsburgh. I'm going to go 7 games on that one.
I got Pittsburgh too. I just think that if you've seen the games, Pittsburgh gets those breakaway goals, and it's not that Lundqvist is a bad goalie. It's just that when you get those breakaways, 30% of the time, the shooter gets a goal. So it's almost like having a 300 hitter up in a baseball game. So I'm going to go Pittsburgh in 6. I think they get the bigger plays. You know, I'm different. I'm one of those guys. I like Sidney Crosby, and I get that he whines and cries. But you know what? 30 years ago, there was a guy that whined, complained to the Zebras, and would go over like a leaf, and he was the greatest offensive player ever, and his name was Wayne Gretzky. And nobody called him a little baby crybaby, but you know what? Now we do. We call Sidney Crosby that. But Crosby had that breakaway goal that you have to admit was just an absolute backbreaker. It was like game 1, I think.
Yeah. But, you know, then we get to Washington, the Washington series with
that's
Philly.
over,
I think it's done.
Yeah.
I really do. I think Washington got out so fast that Philly just cannot regain.
Right.
They're pulling Mason, and they're putting their backup in, I forgot his name. Near
it really doesn't matter at this point. They're down 3 games to nothing.
But they're making a change. It was announced today. So you'll see him in goal tonight. Well, when you see this game, this program, he's playing tonight, and I think I would think that Washington's going to close them out tonight.
Yeah. It kind of looks like it's going that way. Actually, we have Tampa Bay and Detroit, which I think is also another 3-1 series. Or
yeah, and I'm picking Tampa.
Yeah. Tampa's got
They got the step.
Yeah,
they
really
do.
Going forward.
And what a chippy series.
Yeah, that's been really. And the first game was they had this huge, almost like brawl.
Melee,
everybody grabbed somebody.
They had the line brawl.
Yeah. So the playoffs have been a little bit more chippier than usual, kind of. How are the Bruins doing in their series?
Shut up.
How's that going?
They're making some changes. Unfortunately, former Whaler Doug Jarvis and Doug Huda have been relieved of their duties.
I didn't know about Jarvis.
Yep, they both got they kicked them down the street.
Well, at least they got out of there.
Well, I such an ass. But I will say, listen, for when Huda and Jarvis were there, the Bruins did have a couple successful seasons.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the last 2 the Bruins have not made the playoffs. And Jeremy Jacobs cleared his calendar to be on the
did he?
Press conference today with Cam Neely to come down from Buffalo. So
I have to admit, I almost wish the Bruins had made the playoffs because I think they would have played Washington. And I'll tell you what, at least it would have been a better series than what Philly's given Washington.
Philly's having a very tough time.
Yeah. Well, they can go to bed.
Then you got the Ducks and Nashville. And the Ducks came back last night and won.
Yeah.
I want Nashville, so I'm going with Nashville in that series. Then you have the Kings and the Sharks. I really don't like either of those teams, but I want San Jose to beat the Kings.
Yeah, I think they're up in the series too, aren't they?
They're up 2-1. LA won the other night, so that's 2-1. Now Nashville and Anaheim are 2-1.
Right.
They got up to Nashville got up to a 2-0 start on that one.
Right.
Great, a lot of energy with that club.
Yeah,
and a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where I think as we go on, I'm picking Nashville and San Jose, even though I don't like them either because Joe Thornton's just a pain.
Yeah.
He's another crybaby.
Yeah. Well,
but we're going to probably wrap it up for this segment of the Whaler, guys.
Yeah.
Again, we're here for you. We're fighting for you. And Pete, we're bringing the NHL back for you. Have a great night. We're One Nation Under Green. We're the Whaler guys. You guys are the Brigade. Good night.
Let's go Whale.